So if you don't mind, please keep yourselves muted during the presentations and reserve your questions for the end. If you have a question that you're afraid you're going to forget in the middle, please post it to the chat. And if you have any requests, please do the same. There are some people who will be monitoring the chat today. And so we will be able to answer some things throughout, and then Liz and Nancy will answer at the end. We will do the 2 presentations, and there will be a little conversation, and then we will address your questions. Again, thank you all for coming. This is another of our Heller Gallery conversations. Tonight I'm going to introduce Nancy Callan and Liz Collins. I want to say hello to everybody who's on, and including those of you who are on very early in the morning, or in the afternoon on the West Coast, and very early in the morning in Australia. Hello there. Thank you for joining us. Nancy Callan received her BFA from the Massachusetts College of Art in 1996. Her work is represented in private and public collections in the US and internationally, including the Shanghai Museum of Glass in China, the Corning Museum of Glass in Corning, New York, Chrysler Museum of Art, the Mint Museum, the Museum of Glass in Tacoma, and the Museum of Northwest Art in La Conner, Washington. Her work has been featured or will be featured in the upcoming exhibition Venice, an American Studio Glass Movement at La Stanza del Vetro Museum in Venice, Italy. The exhibition, which was postponed due to the pandemic, is now scheduled to open on September 5th. We are keeping our fingers crossed that that will really happen. And Liz Collins works fluidly between art and design with emphasis and expertise in textile media, embracing abstraction, optics, and extreme material contrasts. Collins explores the boundaries between painting, fiber art, and installation, intuitively layering their expressions of energy and emotion. Liz holds an MFA in textiles from RISD and is the recipient of the 2006 USA Fellowship. Her solo exhibitions and installations have been presented nationally and internationally, including at the Museum of Arts and Design in New York, the Leslie Lohman Museum in New York, Galleries Kinder Modern, LMAK, and we ourselves hosted one in 2014, as well as at the Knoxville Museum of Art in Tennessee, the Rossana Orlandi space in Milan, and the Tang Museum in Saratoga Springs, which last month released her first major publication, Liz Collins, Energy Field. Congratulations, Liz. We will be posting links to all these various exhibitions and the book in case you want to acquire it. And I will go ahead and ask Nancy to start off with her presentation.
Thank you, Katya, for that wonderful introduction.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to do my share screen now.
Yeah.
Do all of the things that we do. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay. I just want to thank everybody for joining us today on the Zoom call. And I wanted to thank the Heller Gallery for my first exhibition with them in New York City. I'm so thrilled to be working with Doug and Katya. Also, a special thanks to Liz for being such an amazing artist and bringing so much joy to the world with her work. I'd like to also thank my partner, Julia Ricketts, for all of her help and input in my career and my life. Now I'll take a little time to introduce myself. I was born on the East Coast in a city just north of Boston called Peabody. After graduating high school, I became a self-taught graphic designer. This was pre-computer days, so everything was done by hand. I worked for various silk screening companies and did logos for bands, sports teams, and designs for Faneuil Hall in Boston. I was also a pizza maker for 15 years and a roadie for a band called the Nervous Eaters out of Boston in the 80s. Near the end of the 80s, I decided to make a huge change in my life, and I applied to Massachusetts College of Art to major in graphic design. While at Mass Art, I walked into the glassblowing studio, and the rest is history. After graduating, I took a class with Lino Tagliapietra in Corning, New York. That's where I first met Doug Heller, and it was a really great time in my life. Lino encouraged me to move to Seattle and offered me a job on his team. How could I say no to that offer? So I packed up my bags and moved to Seattle, the glass capital of the world. Working on Lino's team was a dream come true. I learned so much about glass blowing and about life. I worked with him for 19 years. I retired from his team 4 years ago. My own practice was really busy, and I knew it was time for me to just focus on my own career. This is my glass blowing team. I work with an amazing group of artists and friends. There's Alex Cannon, Isaac Fierman, and Dave Walters. Notice the change in Dave from that to this. This is pandemic Dave. Dave is a terrific artist in his own right. We work in a studio in Everett, Washington, and it's called the Shack Art Center. This is Cherry Droplet, not the exact piece from the pipe, but it's from the same series. I love the combination of this pattern and form. I sandblast and hand sand these pieces to give them a silky surface that holds the light instead of reflecting it. This one's called Chrome Yellow Droplet. I'm constantly looking to nature for ideas. You find the most amazing colors and forms and patterns. I take a lot of pictures for reference, but I don't try to reproduce nature exactly. Instead, I use the properties of glass to create similar moments of organic texture and pattern. When I see an image like this, I try to figure out, how I can capture the feeling of movement in my work. I start to dissect each element and strategize how I can create this excitement in glass. Water for me is like glass, so many similar qualities. This is the Skagit Valley north of my home in Seattle, and that's my dog Roxy. In this piece, there are 4 layers of color and pattern that work together to create incredible depth. The 3 droplets I just showed are part of my show at the Heller Gallery. I've been looking to fashion all my life for inspiration. So many patterns, so little time. There's a relationship in the way I look at textiles and the way I think about glass. I see a parallel between the threads and weaves and fabrics and the possibilities of techniques like canes, roller wraps, and stringers. For this piece, I made wide, flat cane with a pattern of dark lines that suggest threads. I broke up the pattern to create a more organic feeling. I really like it looking at imperfections within regular structures, and distressed fabric has that quality. This is called Bengal Paloma. Descent, on view at the Heller Gallery. I've taken some of these ideas into 2-dimensional wall pieces. These allow a different experience of the pattern, even more like a piece of fabric in some ways. The black lines on the surface are raised and look like threads. It's been really freeing to separate the pattern ideas from the forms. I can just focus on this aspect, and it's more like drawing or painting. I love taking the work from 2 dimensions into 3 dimensions and then back into 2 dimensions. In 2018, I had the terrific opportunity to do a residency at Starworks, a craft center in Star, North Carolina. I knew I wanted to focus on developing the wall panel ideas and decided to draw inspiration from the rich history of the local textile industry. The transformation of cotton from plant to thread to woven fabric really captured my imagination. The way a fluffy fiber can be worked and transformed into cloth relates to the way hot glass is created. Multiple steps transform raw materials into sophisticated finished products. There's a little bit of alchemy in starting with sand and ending up with crystals, as there is magic in the journey from seed to plant to a beautiful textile. To make a panel, I use multiple step process that places the design inside the cylinder shape. Here I'm at Starworks with the crew and my assistants from Seattle, Alex and Isaac. After cooling, the cylinders are cut to remove the bottom and open the gap on the side. Then they're placed in a kiln and opened flat, face up. I have a whole video on this if you want to see more details about the process. I think Katya's gonna link it to the gallery website.
We will. It will be up by, that video will be up by tomorrow.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
This piece that you just saw on the pipe, when completed, is this is after it's been opened. This piece is called Oculi. And here is the finished installation titled Spin, Weave, Gather. This project took me over 2 years to make and is now in the permanent collection of the Mint Museum in Charlotte, North Carolina. I like to create opportunities with my friends and artists that I admire. Lindsay Adelman is a dear friend and talented lighting designer from New York City. We've worked on projects together since we met in 1996. Last year, we went to the island of Belle-Île. It's an island off the coast of France, and we created a residency for ourselves. We rented a house for a week. There's a glass center called Fluid there that supported our visit, and I stayed on to teach a master's class with Tobias Moll, Martin Yanetsky, and Ned Cantrell. It was a great time. Belle-Île is a beautiful place. It's wild and windy. Lindsay and I both decided to work in ways that we normally don't. We worked with nature. We scavenged the landscape for supplies and freed ourselves from our usual practices. This is a little raft that I made. It was so much fun, like being a kid. Lindsay created watercolors of plant life on the island. When she returned home, she was inspired to make wallpaper out of the paintings. And here's one of our collaborative lighting projects. Another artist I collaborate with is Mel Douglas from Australia. I think she might be tuned in too. Hi, Mel. Here we're doing a residency at the Chrysler Museum Hot Shop. Mel is an incredible artist with a unique style and philosophy in her work. I love working with her because she brings so many great ideas to the table. In these pieces called two-tone, we're playing with a subtle variation of tone. We've taken my droplet form and added her signature roller wraps and carving to create these beautiful surfaces. In Lash Bowl, there's a lot of process that goes into these works, but the results are worth it. Right now, I'm working with my pal, Kathy Gray, a fabulous artist from LA. We're doing a collaboration on the theme of clowns, working with Venetian techniques and inspired by the Commedia dell'arte figurines and current events. This piece is called Remember Me. It's blown in slumped glass with enamels. We'll be showing our work at the Bainbridge Island Art Museum in Washington when they reopen. This piece is titled Ringleader, and the show is called The Clown in Me Loves You. Katya asked me to add a few pieces from a really special show I'm part of. In fact, she already mentioned it. It's the Stanza di Vetro in Venice. curated by Tina Oldknow and William Warmis. I'm thrilled to be included in this in what looks like a beautiful exhibition with many maestros of Venetian and American glass. It opens September 6th and runs through January 2021. This is one of my snowmen. It's very large in scale, and I'm so excited that they wanted to include this in the show. It's one of the weirder things that I've made, but I really love it. And this brings me to my current show at the Heller Gallery. I've gotten really into creating these wall installations. It's an art in itself to create the right relationship between the parts and the whole. It's not always possible to keep the pieces together, but it's great to have a show because I get to enjoy the connection and think on a larger scale. A lot of these images go back to nature and that process of abstracting what I see. The title of this is called Tunnel Vision. This is kind of a new direction for me, and I'm combining screened enamels with a cane design for layered effects. I'm really excited about these techniques. I call this one webs. I made some unique sculptures for the show too. This one's called M Theory. This piece really highlights the spatial qualities of glass. A new work that just arrived in the gallery. This is called Chalkboard Poetry. And this has that sandblasted etched surface. I love the modular explorations of artists like Sol LeWitt. This primary color trio is in that tradition of variations on a theme. In this piece, Ebb Tide, I'm enjoying using the Marini to create an abstract composition. Glass is always moving, and there are moments in the process where I make certain decisions to capture that. In this piece, I use gravity to stretch the Marini a bit and give it a downward movement. One of my favorite things about glass is this quality of being able to freeze a moment in time. This piece is called Chrysalis. I'm really happy that the Hellers are reinstalling my show and keeping it up till the 12th of September. The next few shots are of the gallery, and I'm gonna wrap it up there and give the floor to Liz. There you have it. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Thank you, Nancy, so much. That was awesome.
Thank you. Yay. It was hard to keep it so quick.
Well, you did a great job.
Did my best.
It was a really beautiful presentation of wonderful body of work. And
thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask Liz. Liz, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
Okay. Hi.
Hi. Great to see you all. Thank you very much for inviting me to do this, Katya and Nancy. It's a great honor, and I was thrilled to be invited. Nancy and I met when we were both at Haystack teaching like 12 years ago, and Nancy and Kathy Gray were teaching a class together, and I was teaching a knitting machine class, and it was so amazing to meet these two women. And
yeah, Liz had us.
Go ahead.
Liz had us half naked in the woods doing a fashion show. That's my fond memory.
We had a blast.
We did. It was amazing.
And we did a barter, one of the many wonderful barters I've done with other artists I love over the years, and I still have those glasses. I made Nancy a sweater while we were there.
And socks.
Oh, socks too. Oh my
yes,
God.
Yes,
I can't believe that. Well, anyway, it's really wonderful to come back to this meeting and see you all out there in Zoom land. I see some familiar faces and names, so I'm excited to share my work with you and talk about material alchemy and other things with Nancy and Katya. So I'm going to share my screen and start broadcast, right? Okay, I've got my 10-year-old technical assistant here. Okay.
It's starting soon.
So now I go to here. Yeah.
And then you.
Sorry,
what
just
you're doing.
bear with me while I do this. Okay. So play. Yeah. So I think many of you probably don't know my work. So this slideshow is meant to be an introduction of sorts. I'm an artist, as Katya said. I work across art and design and work with fiber installation. A lot of my work takes the form of painting. I do a lot of installations where you see the artworks in a context. These two images are from the show I had at Heller. I wanted to, you know, reference that experience. That was my first solo gallery show in New York, so that was really exciting. And here you see the kind of hybrid practice at work. There's some chairs I made with, and a lamp that I made with Harry Allen, who's a designer, and that's something I really like to do, is collaborate with other artists and designers. For the most part, when I want to do something where, I mean, either it's something I want to make that I can't, so I engage one of my talented friends to do it with me, or maybe because they have some kind of brilliant idea, and I believe that the two of us, or not idea, but work, and the two of us together will come up with some kind of magic. So I was hearing about Nancy's collabs, and who knows, maybe from this talk we'll have some sparks and do something together. So what you're seeing are pieces that are made with weaving, and they are not hand woven. They are made with an industrial weaving loom in Italy. A lot of the fine fabrics that you're seeing here that take the form of paintings. My next slide, I think, is blank because I want to show you a video of the process by which I make these. So now I have to transfer to my other Dropbox office. Bear with me. Okay, this is a time lapse that shows me deconstructing this fabric that I've had woven in Como, Italy. So I make these fabrics with the mills. I usually work from my drawing and paintings and translate those into woven structure with the mill, and I specify with them, based on their capabilities, particular qualities that I want them to make. And I specify the colors and the finishing and everything. And in this case, the mill that makes this fabric, it specializes in what's called fil coupé, which is a technique where they weave a lot of different yarns and then cut a lot of them away to reveal layers underneath. And there's a lot of transparency within. And so what I do with these fabrics, instead of cutting everything away, is I ask them to not cut the fabrics at all. So all of this yarn is going across the fabric and only weaving in where it's engaged in pattern, and where it's not engaged, it floats across from selvage to selvage. So I go in with these surgical scissors and just cut away in this kind of reductive process that to me feels like, it's like painting, but it's, instead of adding to, I'm taking away. And so embedded in this material are layers of imagery and construction, like you can see in the, to the left, in those kind of chevron shapes that look gray. That's actually very sheer silk fabric. There's the back of the fabric that you got to glance quickly. A lot of these pieces are two-sided pieces that you can hang on one side or another, or you can also suspend so that you get to see both sides. And this body of work is ongoing, and it's something that I really feel like I could just work on exclusively and never exhaust the possibilities, because like printmaking, you can have one plate, you know, in weaving, it's like one file, and you can manifest it in so many different ways. So you can just exhaust one file and then go on to the next. And I can just do this for the rest of my life. Anyway, I'll go back to the other images so you can see the rest of my slideshow. How do I get that to go away? Okay. So here's another one. You could see the imagery is the same, but it's a different scale. Like this one's a square. I've done different things with the yarn. I'm very interested in what gravity does to yarn. There's something about the showering. We can get into that later in our joint conversation. We touched upon it when we were meeting. Nancy and I both have some obsessions in common. Anyway, here's another piece called Multi-Mountain, and here you can really see the transparent areas, all the gray areas. You can see right through to the wall, and it's great because then there are shadows that get cast onto the wall. This is an installation that was at the New Museum as part of a big show called Trigger: Gender as a Tool and a Weapon. And they gave me a long, tall room on the second floor to transform into an environment that functioned as a social space, in addition to showing mostly my artworks, but also showcasing some videos of other artists in the show. And so that's something I typically do with a lot of these artworks, is I build context to hold them. So they're discrete objects unto themselves, but they also sometimes function really well together in an environment. This is a needlepoint. That's my kind of other extreme of work that runs alongside the industrial weaving. This is like the antithesis of that, because it's extremely slow and analog, and it's just one stitch at a time. These are several needlepoints that I made during the lockdown. I've been doing needlepoints for the past 10 years with my own designs, and these ones are ones that I generated. I'm calling them my COVID needlepoints, but they're pretty small. They're like 8 by 8 inches. This one's called Ascension, and you can see in there some of the kind of design references I have. I'm a big fan of the Memphis design movement and abstract geometry and all different kind of traditions. And Katya was mentioning something to me that this, maybe it was this one or another one that reminded her of the Werner Werkstätte. I probably said that wrong, but the, you know, there are a lot of different design movements and art, a lot of art historical time periods that have really fueled my work. I'm like a sponge, so there's a lot that influences me at any given moment, from art to design to pop culture to music to literature to nature to everything, to life itself. This is a project that just went up down in downtown Brooklyn in the J Street Metrotech Plaza. It's a bank of windows that runs along the 15 Metrotech building. And this is a digital mural that comes from a series of drawings that I did while I was in residence at the Museum of Arts and Design, in that like 1 day a week art residency that they have there. And I did all these drawings with colored pencils and a ruler on this roll of black paper. And I just started one day and I kept going. And it was a really kind of rewarding experience to like develop these games with the lines and try to make as much light come out of that black paper as possible through the convergence of these colored lines. And so we blew those up 3 times the scale of the drawings to fit into this sequence of windows. It's not the first time I use those drawings. This is the Museum of Arts and Design lobby, where I did a combination of a wall drawing to the left, and then the right, the elevator bank, is wallpaper that was produced of my drawings by a Swiss wallpaper and textile company called Four Spaces. So those wallpapers are commercially available. And that's something I do from time to time with my work, is like, you know, I'll generate some kind of artwork or project, and eventually it finds its way into some kind of design product. It's not a direct line to that happening. It sometimes takes, you know, like a few years later, somebody will see it and then want to put a commercial product into work. This is the cover for the book, Liz Collins Energy Field, that just came out. And the images you're seeing right now are from the installation I did at the Tang Museum at Skidmore College. And that was a 2-year project that ran from 15 to 17. And they gave me this space to transform and make into a social space. So if you want to know more about that project, you can look at the web and get the book. This is from Rosanna Orlandi Milan Design Fair last year. This was with a company called Sunbrella, a textile company, and another company called Lean Rosé that does furniture and lighting. And they gave me this 3-room space to transform using their materials and resources. And so I came up with this environment called Summit Suite that reference mountain range. And that's something I think about a lot when I'm in Italy, because I'm usually in the north and I see lots of mountains. Anyway, there's a whole kind of story behind the materials in that project that I can talk about later. And then this is the last thing I installed before the lockdown. This was at the Addison Gallery in Andover, Massachusetts.
All right, I'll get done. Thanks, buddy.
Someone's not muted. I'm trying to ignore it, but it's getting kind of distracting. Anyway.
Please mute themselves again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm almost done with my slideshow, so anyway, this is a throw. I made a group of throws for this year's Milan Design Fair that didn't happen. And so I'm starting to release these hand knit blankets that are made from this selvage material, which you saw in the prior slides in the installation in Milan. It's a byproduct of industrial weaving. So this is a big upcycling project or recycling project because the material is waste. And so I've spent a lot of time prototyping ideas with this material to, you know, transform it into things that are beautiful. And I think it's successful. And it's a kind of ongoing prototype and collection project that has been happening with myself and Sunbrella for the past couple years. And so slowly things are being released to the world so that people can see how wonderful recycled materials can be. That is my last slide. So I think it's time for us now to get to our conversation. And how do I stop sharing? Stop sharing.
Stop sharing. There should be a
off
button. Yes.
Stop share. Sorry.
There you go. You're good. Thank you so much. That was really wonderful to see. And thank you for putting in the video. I love that so that people can see the process a little bit. And I'm going to just start off by saying that we were discussing a little bit about alchemy and material alchemy. And I'm going to let you two, start with that. I am going to really quickly, though, read this paragraph that I said I found when I was researching a little bit about alchemy and the materials that Nancy and Liz work with. And in this case, it was actually glass. And on the Metropolitan Museum website, there's an article posted this February by Anna Matisse Donifer Hickey, Laura Donifer's daughter, who was doing some research on that. And she was writing about the fact that alchemy, which was actually widely supported, particularly in the 16th and 17th century, and had some really high level sponsors such as Rudolph II, Roman emperor, Czech king, king of Bohemia at the time. Here's what she wrote, among other things. The widespread patronage of talented alchemists led to important innovations in the decorative arts, most notably in the production of vitreous materials such as glass and enamel. Both mediums involved the application of fire to transform one material into another, i.e. sand and ash into luminous glass, and as such had long-standing practical and theoretical ties to alchemy. This association added another layer of interest to these beautiful pieces. They were tangible evidence of success in material transformation. And the material transformation was supported to the extent that the person who promoted this particular work was in Potsdam, Germany. Elector Frederick William instructed that the alchemists should not cease to obtain the honor that the first red glass be made here at the Potsdam Glass Works, no matter how much it may cost. Well, we may only wish for patrons like that. But I did find that really amazing that as far back as the Renaissance, essentially, or even the late Gothic period, there were alchemists who were trying to turn base materials into something more noble. And I just want to, I want to kind of start with that and with your thoughts on alchemy and material alchemy, Liz and Nancy.
Go, Liz.
Okay, well, I guess I should go first because I was the one who proposed that we talk about that. Because, well, for one, I think glass, like the whole process, no, let me back up and say, in a lot of the different media that artists work in, I do feel like taking something very basic and transforming it into something sublime is alchemy. So I think of that a lot. And it's just exciting every time to have that happen. And sometimes I look at these humble materials like, oh, this is just a and so I feel like that's true magic, and it's also tied to spiritual things.
Uh-oh.
You are frozen, Liz.
That's exciting to talk about with other artists and thinkers. Yeah.
And so the process of transformation of something ordinary into something sublime, that's how you are saying you define that, alchemy, Liz?
Loosely.
That sounds great. And Nancy?
Yes, I agree with that. And I wonder, like, when you're using the recycled, the scraps and the plastic, and I mean, that must seem like a real like alchemy to you. Like when you take these like discarded things and make them into beautiful, like the throws that you made. They're amazing. That's like, I mean, it's magic. It's like every time I blow glass, you've got this like liquidy, yummy material, and it's just soft and sloppy and all over the place. And then, it like freezes up, and it's just still a wonder to me every time I use it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not something to underestimate. I mean, in a way, it's like stating the obvious. Like, yes, of course, if you take a lump of clay and turn it into some kind of exquisite object, it's magical and amazing, and that's what art is. But I like to talk about it. I like to think about it, and I don't take it for granted,
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's all about one's imagination. Like you can take a piece of cardboard and transform it into something exquisite. It's all about your imagination and your abilities and, you know, moving something from here to there. And with the selvage waste, the thing is, I'm starting with the material that's already beautiful. And so it's kind of like starting with a good script for a play. Like, how are you going to screw it up if the foundation is already so strong? I mean, you really have to try hard to ruin it, you know. Like this selvage waste is so cool because it's just this long fringy thing, you know. It's a miniature woven fabric. It's like giant yarn that's fringy, and so it's very easy to make it beautiful and special.
It's interesting to me because so many people always actually list that as a complaint about glass, that it is too beautiful to begin with, kind of. And so what you're saying is that some parts of the material that you work with also are like that they are beautiful in their own right to begin with. And then it's a matter of what you do with it and whether you just want to focus on the beauty or how you kind of work with that aspect of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think I have to find a better word, but I often say that I'm a materialist. There's gotta be, I'm sure there are better words for that, but like I'm very material driven, you know. Sometimes the material.
When you say that, Liz, do you mean that, you know, the material, like, do you get your cues for what to do, your inspiration from the material itself? Is that
Yes.
what you're saying? Yeah.
A lot, yeah. Do you, Nancy?
Yeah, I almost feel like it's a collaboration between me and the material, you know, and I feel like you really have to listen to what the material wants to do, what it's capable of doing, but also, you know, you can show it what you want to do too, which is you know, another great part of what we do. You know, it's like you said, you know, the imagination, you know, you can have like these wasted things, but you do have to have the imagination. Yes, they're already beautiful, but you know, you have to have the ability to bring it to another place. And that's, you know, that's a gift that you have with what you're doing. So, you know, you got to take credit for that, for sure.
And you have both said that that when you make work, you start with a design that you Nancy have a design that you think of ahead of time. In fact, it takes some thought or a lot of thought to make sure that you can actually execute it the way you do. And the same with you, Liz, when you send the design drawings to these mills in Italy, the design has to already have been in your head, right, before you send it off. But then the work happens. So do you think that most of the work that kind of is more improvisational happens when?
For me, it happens more when I'm blowing the object. Like, for example, say I'm going to use an example of, I was inspired by a pinwheel sort of design that Saul LeWitt does on his murals. And like, I wanted to kind of recapture that with glass in my panels. And so I set it up and I figured out, how I can do this, how I can get the pinwheel in the front. And, you know, I was like imagining it with these straight lines, and what I ended up with was way better than what I imagined, but it was nothing like what I thought it was going to be. And that, in fact, is one of the panels behind you. It's called Spider. And yeah, you can see it there. It's
I'm trying to get out of its way.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, because I'm going from, you know, a two-dimensional drawing
Mhm.
into a three-dimensional form. Like there's so much movement in glass blowing, and then I'm going back to a two-dimensional form. There's really a lot of chance that happens there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And Liz, for you?
Well, I mean, I learned a long time ago, I guess when I was a student at RISD, that often, like I learned something about surrendering to the process. Like that the times, I think I was probably a sophomore or something, and I remember like trying to make things and then being frustrated that they didn't come out the way I planned. And then I started catching on that like, oh wait, if I just reframe my perception of what the result is, that maybe I could discover even better things than what I planned. And I mean, textile work lends itself to that. It's like you need that kind of attitude to really make the work. Like you need to be open, because you can't, there's a lot that you can't know until you see the materials together. You know, it's a very tactile medium, or it's not just one medium. There's so many different processes, but you know, there are ways where you can do things where you spec something out and get exactly what you planned. And with digital technologies, you certainly have a lot of control there. But when I work with the mills, I mean, for one thing, like I'm not a high paying customer, because I'm working with mills that do volume production for fashion and interiors. And I'm this weird artist who they're doing a special favor for, or doing some kind of collaboration with through a connection. And so they're not art fabricators. So when I come to them, I'm like last on the list of, you know, orders. And so sometimes mistakes are made, or, you know, I just kind of have to accept what I get.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, there are a lot of times where built into the work are this whole series of
you are,
build in uncertainty. Am I frozen?
yeah, you are not now, but you were for a moment. It's okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm on Cape Cod. I tried, but anyway.
We're so grateful you're here.
Thank you.
But, you know, I also wanted to say that it's interesting to me. First of all, I love that video that you showed, which shows the way that you make the work, because I think that it gives kind of an interesting perspective. And I also was struck by, in the past, hearing you talk about work as well as Nancy, and figuring out that there are so many similarities in the language that is used to describe textiles and glass. That there's, you know, words like gravity and transparency and malleability that come up in both materials. And I think that that's a really striking kind of correlation there to me. And I also love the fact that in that video, you actually change the axis on the piece. You kind of hang it the other way. And that is something that is also used in glassmaking, actually. So I was just curious about kind of the proximity of these two media and some of the processes. And wondering if you could comment on that. Nancy?
I wonder if, I mean, there's two different like ways of languages that we use. One is like to describe the work, which you use more. And then there's like the hot shop language. So, which
you guys.
You okay, Liz?
Keep talking, okay?
Okay. The hot shop language, which can get like a little bit more racy. And like I want, you know, like things like glory hole and like, you know, there's like, I wonder, Liz, are there any like X-rated language sound bites that you can give us in the fiber world?
Wow.
Sorry.
Can you guys hear me? That's
Yeah,
good.
see you now. Yay.
Thought I'd shake you up a little there.
I don't know. I mean, I think, you know, fiber is inherently sexy in a lot of ways, but I can't think of any.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. The only thing I can think of is the word beater. It's
That's
just
a
a
good one.
weaving equipment, you know? No, I don't know. I mean, that it's a very sensual field, you know, like it's all about sensory experience. I think I'm very deeply invested in people's visceral sensual experiences with my work. And it used to be, when I was making knitwear, it was all about like people wearing these things and feeling transformed and sexy and looked at, and, you know, like other creatures. And then I shifted slowly into working with space, and then it became that same, not that same experience, but another kind of sensory overload experience that I could have in addition to people entering the space, which is a combination of kind of attraction and repulsion, which is something I like to play with.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like built into a lot of my work is a lot of eroticism, and there's a lot of duality about pain and pleasure, and, you know, aggression and seduction and all of these things. But I think it within textiles, I don't know. It's so many things to so many people.
Definitely.
Not in the language of the making anyway, but perhaps in the way that the final work.
I mean, untangling yarn could be someone's fetish, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's mine.
I'm gonna ask everybody who's here with us still, if you have any questions, please let us know. If you want to post them in chat, this would be a good time to do that. And otherwise, we will just continue a little longer with this thought process here, and maybe talk a little bit more about how both of your bodies of work kind of are responding to the immediate to your immediate needs and thoughts, and how you've moved on, let's say, to work on installations. I'm just looking here. Sorry. Here's Lindsay saying she has a question.
Hi, you guys. Hi, Nance.
Hey,
Hi,
Chief.
Liz.
Hi, Nance. I mean, hi, Lindsay. Yay, Lindsay Adelman. Love you.
Katya.
Hi.
It's so nice to see you, ladies.
Thank
I love both of your work so much. I have a question I would love to hear a little bit about other materials that you already use or that you're dying to get your hands on, or just like a little bit more about that, about like how you've extended yourself like outside of the material, the body materials that you're used to working with, and explorations that you've done or are interested in.
Mm-hmm.
From both of you.
Thanks, Lindsay. I think that after, you know, while talking and listening to Liz here, talking about how sensual and like putting the material on the body, and like, I think I had like this moment of where I just like long to touch the hot glass, you know? So I feel like I'm having a realization that like, when I'm not working with glass, I love to work with materials that I can touch, you know? And I've been, I bought a sewing machine right before the pandemic hit, and I've been making clothes, which has been amazing. And like working with
Can you model for us, Nancy?
Oh, okay. So since you asked, I made this top and the pants. You probably can't see the pants, but anyway, I made this top, and it's out of a recycled banner that was created in a protest of a Hobby Lobby that was going up in our neighborhood. So it's like painted, and I was watching a Vivienne Westwood documentary, and I was kind of like so into her like rough and tumble punk style that I just like got inspired at midnight a couple nights ago and just whipped up this little kind of Japanese sort of punk rock top.
Well, I want to see the pants. You got to stand up on the chair.
Here's the pants.
Good job.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Bravo. Yep.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
Drop crotch.
I
Very
like the
good.
sitting chair.
A little detail here in the pocket.
Oh my God.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for asking.
I love that chair action. Like
Yeah, the swivel.
floater.
Who says it's not going to be on a Lazy Susan?
It's
Seriously.
beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, just being able to touch materials. And when I was on the island of Belle-Île with Lindsay, it was so amazing to just like forage materials and create sculptures out of just, found objects. So yeah, for me, that's like something I've been doing during the pandemic.
Cool.
Yeah, and
Wanting
Oh.
material that you can touch and some found objects.
Yeah, yeah.
Sounds good. And you, Liz?
And fashion design, of course.
yeah, well, it's funny how we want what the other has, because I'm like the opposite. Like I have I'm not just saying this, but for a while I've been wanting to collaborate with people who make glass, or like there's that residency at Urban Glass that they bring in artists who don't work with glass. I'm like, I should apply for that. And because I work with so many soft materials and there's so much malleability and slinky, drapey, and I'm constantly like trying to make my fabrics taut, and I put them on supports so that I'm not, I'm kind of like, because I come from textiles, I'm like, sometimes it's not enough for me to have just a piece of fabric. It has to be under tension. And, there's also that dialogue I'm trying to have with painting. But I love hard materials engaging with the soft. And there was something I was about to do a couple of years ago where I was going to embed one of my textile pieces in glass. And I don't know, I feel like with the kind of idea of material alchemy and the unknown, there's a lot that I don't even know is possible that would be discovered through collaboration with people who work with glass. And also, I really, really love video. I've done some video collaboration, and I really love, I've been a huge film buff for decades, and it really informs my work a lot. And there's some connections between weaving and video, and I just love that kind of moving image. So that's another area that's kind of underdeveloped that I like to explore. Mm-hmm.
That sounds great. And I'm actually Lindsay and I and Erica Rosenfeld, who is also on here. We are all on the Urban Glass board, so we heartily invite you to apply for the residency. It would be Urban's honor to have you.
Thank you.
And let me just say, you might need a gaffer.
Yeah, exactly. I was just gonna.
Well, we have that whole other. No, we're just gonna do something together, and then. Oh, by the way, the lighting thing is a big deal for me. So we'll just throw you into the mix, Lindsay, and then we have like a nice little triangle collab.
Yeah, it'll be a party.
And Lindsay's been doing some amazing video work too. So you can get your video on with Lindsay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our hour is just about up, but I just want to say thank you so much. And I really do hope that some kind of a collaboration is going to come out of this, because it just seems like it's just on the verge of happening already. I see all that enthusiasm, and it's always wonderful to kind of be a witness to the birth of something like that. So thank you, and thank you, Lindsay, for your question. That was
My
awesome.
pleasure. Thanks, Katya.
A little extra catalyst there. We love that. Anyway, thank you everybody for being with us. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Liz, so much.
Thank
for
you.
an hour of your vacation or your.
Yes.
And
Anyone, be in touch. Great to see you all.
and
Thank you so
We have
much.
posted Liz's information in the chat if anybody wants, and please reach out to us if you need via email to the gallery if that's the only email you have. Thank you very much. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.